Hello everyone, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm going to talk about the Ursula K Le Guin novel, The Lathe of Heaven. This book was originally serialized in Amazing Science Fiction in March and May of 1971. I don't know why there was a huge gap between March and May, but there was. It was a March release and then a May release. And that had part 1 and part 2 of The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K Le Guin. It was published a few months later in novel form and did very well after that. A lot of people think this novel is an homage to Philip K. Dick. Ursula K Le Guin really did like Philip K. Dick and often talked about how wonderful his novels are and recommended people read them whenever she could. Like many of Dick's novels, this novel has massive changes occurring to reality and to the world, and a protagonist that is continuously questioning his own reality. Is he real? Are his dreams real? Does he exist? Which timeline does he exist? It's really mind-bending stuff, which makes it very enjoyable to read. The book is set in Portland in the year 2002. This was released in 71, so that was a kind of a far-off date for Le Guin. This novel is about a man named George Orr. Many people believe that Ursula K. Le Guin named him George Orr as a nod to George Orwell. George Orr self-medicates himself using drugs in order to stop him from dreaming. He tries to stay up. He tries not to sleep. He uses the drugs to put him so deep into a state of sleep that he doesn't dream, because he believes that he can dream reality, that he can change reality around him with his dreams. And unfortunately, one of the side effects of this power is that he remembers the change, the reality of the past, before he dreams the new reality, but nobody around him remembers the change. And this is enough to drive him absolutely insane, so he uses these drugs to self-medicate, and the novel opens with him basically being ordered to start attending therapy with a psychiatrist named William Haber. And Haber is not just a psychiatrist, but he also studies dreams. So that's why they send him to Haber, because he's kind of perfect for this specific case. At first, Haber does not believe in Orr's effective dreaming, he calls it, the ability to change reality. However, as time goes on, Haber is able to see the changes occur. So he puts Orr under hypnosis, and while the world changes and Haber is in the room with Orr, kind of guiding him through dreams, then suddenly Haber is able to also remember the worlds before and the changes that Orr is creating with his dreams. At which point Haber begins to use Orr in order to make his altruistic and utopian ideals of what the world should be come true. He ceases to be as interested in curing Haber and is much more interested in using Haber to realize his vision of what humanity could be and how good humanity could really be. And that becomes the crux of the book. Is Haber actually a good person for using Haber's power in what he considers an altruistic way, but might not create the utopian societies that are as perfect as he thinks they are? After a few weeks of this and a couple of reality-changing dreams, Orr gets fed up with Haber using him this way and decides to hire a lawyer. And he goes and finds Heather Lalash. I'm not sure I said that correctly, but that's how I read it in my head. Heather is a very strong and powerful woman and a lawyer and a woman of color. It was very nice to read a science fiction book that included powerful women and a woman of color from this era. It did occur before, but this, I think, was really kind of well tackled, and I liked this character right away. And she becomes kind of the love interest for Orr as the novel goes on. So that's the basic plot of this book. I'm now going to move into kind of the different aspects, literary aspects of the book, and how they worked for me. But before I do that, I want to talk about kind of the complicated relationship that I have with Ursula K Le Guin. Her storytelling is absolutely incredible, but there is something in her books that make them hard for me to finish. And I feel like I'm starting to understand exactly what that is, but I've had to read quite a few of hers in order to understand what it is that makes these books harder for me to finish than other books of the same kind of literary caliber. This one I started reading back in, I think, November of last year, and I only just finished it yesterday. And the reason for that is because I got halfway through it and I put it down. I couldn't continue on. It was just slowing me down way too much. So I read Murakami's Hard-Boiled Wonderland in between. I read The Castle by Franz Kafka in between all these other videos I've done. And I read another novel that I haven't made a video for yet that I'm about to, which was Roger Zelazny's The Man Who Shapes. I think it's called Dream Master in the extended novel version. And it was very interesting that was also about a psychologist's relationship to his patient, or a psychiatrist's relationship to their patient. So I've read two books that had very similar themes, one right next to another, and I'll make a book about the Dream Master in a few weeks. But because of the similarities between these two books, it made me want to go back and finish The Lathe of Heaven, and I did. And when I picked it up the second time, I couldn't put it down. The second half of this book was absolutely incredible, and I feel like it kind of dragged its feet through the first half. My original inclination was to think that it was the prose, that Ursula K Le Guin's prose had a tendency to slow me down or bore me, but that's not true. In looking at the prose in this novel, it's absolutely incredible. I love her prose. It is not her prose at all. What I think it is the way that she writes about her characters. We have three major characters in this book, and Ursula K Le Guin does an interesting thing with psychic distance. And psychic distance is the concept of how close we are to a character in a narrative. Right? So a far psychic distance means you just see the actions of the character. You aren't privy to any of their thoughts. A close psychic distance is when you are in the main character's head. You get all of their thoughts and you know what's going through their head the whole time. Ursula K Le Guin takes a medium to far psychic distance. So we don't really get a lot of what is going on in the characters' heads. We just see their actions. And there's something about this that makes it very difficult for me to connect strongly to her characters. And I found this to be true a couple years back. I read Tales from Earth... No, the first, A Wizard of Earthsea. And that one I kind of had the same problem with. I loved the story. I loved the prose. But the characters were so far back that I never really felt able to connect with them, and that was true in this case as well, especially through the first half of the novel. But the second half, I feel like we do get closer to George Orr, the effective dreamer, and it made me enjoy the novel much more. This is just a unique aspect of Ursula K Le Guin. It's not bad. It's just, for me, it gives me a bit of a barrier between her characters and myself. And that's not true with all readers. It's just a unique kind of aspect between her writing and what I like to read, and it's not even near enough of a complaint to put down the book. I still highly recommend this book, but for some odd reason, because of this choice, I have a harder time finishing Ursula K Le Guin novels than some other novels that I read. The plot of this book is absolutely incredible. It's philosophical. It is well thought out, and it is absolutely wild. A lot of people compare this to Philip K. Dick in the scope of the plot that occurs, and I agree with that 100%. It is really a massive concept that I think is outlined well, and I think that she said what she set out to say with this plot. For the next section, I'm going to be talking about themes of this book, and in order to do that, I'm going to have to go over some spoilers in this novel. So if you want to read this book without it having certain plot points spoiled for you, you should go ahead and stop now and come back when you finish the book. This isn't a novel that has massive twists, so the plot reveals aren't going to be that detrimental to your enjoyment of reading the book. The first theme that I want to talk about, and really the main theme, everything's going to be just a breakdown of this one theme, and that is the concept of altruism and how we find a way to change and understand moral quandaries that don't have an easy answer. And that is what Haber is faced with, or is just a dreamer. He has no ability to stop his power, nor to control it. He can't help what he dreams. So the novel is really about Haber and whether or not Haber is a bad or a good person for trying to use this power to deal with impossible moral quandaries. And he definitely tries. He slowly, through using Orr's effective dreaming, he changes the world to be his view of a perfect utopia. And I'm just going to give you the major themes that he goes through, the major moral quandaries that he goes through in this book, trying to make the world a better place. The first one that he deals with is the concept of overpopulation. Like I said, this novel takes place in Oregon in 2002 in Portland. And in this future Oregon, there are millions and millions and millions of people in Portland alone. It's completely overpopulated, and people are malnourished because of how overpopulated it is. And this is one of the things that Haber hates about his city at that time. So he has Orr do a guided effective dream, and he tells Orr through hypnosis to get rid of the overpopulation problem. And Orr has a dream that there is a massive plague quite a few years back that decimates the population, and basically 2/3 of the people that existed before this effective dream disappear. It's some Thanos stuff, like from the Marvel universe, and it's the same moral question. Did he do right by getting rid of so many people without choosing who lived and who died, right? It was just a dream, so an effective dream, so it was random, the 2/3 of the people that were gone. But the life for the 1/3 of people that is left is much better. And it is important to note here that Haber, when he has Orr do these effective dreams, every one of these effective dreams, Haber makes himself a little bit more important. So he slowly, throughout these dreams, becomes more and more of an important political and rich figure. So he is using it to his own ends while doing these, what he considers altruistic changes. And right here, of course, we have a huge quandary. Like, morally, Haber has forced Orr to kill off millions of people to make the world a better place. And that makes him a bad guy, but it's so weird to watch how well everything goes after he's done this. The next concept that he has Orr tackle is sickness, and specifically genetic sickness. And I think that this was Ursula K Le Guin thinking about and looking at eugenics, which is a terrible pseudoscientific concept that has been disproven many a time. But people used it for quite a while to try and back up their inherent racism. So what happens is the society suddenly allows citizens to euthanize each other when they are suspected of having some form of genetic issue that will mess up the perfect genes of the human race at that point. Basically, they do what they call a citizen's arrest. They have to get 10 witnesses. The one that we see in the book is somebody has cancer and is hiding it, so this citizen euthanizes this other citizen right there on the sidewalk. It's very intense and very scary. After that, he moves on to the concept of war, and he wants to, in this 2002 world, the Middle East is a hotbed for war, and Haber guides Orr to have an effective dream to get rid of war. Now, Orr can't control how his brain interprets these leading meditations from Haber. So he just kind of wakes up and is like, oh, that's what I dreamed. That's what I dreamt. So that's what's going to happen. In this case, in order to stop all war for the human race, he dreams that there are aliens that have landed on Mars, and that that Earth is at war with these aliens. And because of having a mutual bad guy, humanity has banded together and is no longer at war with each other, which is wonderful. But of course, now they're at war with an alien species that has just popped out of Orr's head into reality. And the last one that he tries to deal with is racism. And the way that Orr dreams away racism is he makes all humanity gray. So there is no difference in skin color. All humans are gray. And he makes it so that this was the truth all the way back in time. And this is the most complex aspect of the novel for me when I read it. Because it looks at the concept of ideology. And ideology is, of course, basically the world that we grew up in and how it affects us. And it asks the question, if you are to take away something so important to somebody's ideology, like the color of their skin, something that affects every aspect of their lives, would that person still exist? Can somebody exist if you take away a major aspect of them? And this is slightly dated concept. I don't know if Ursula K Le Guin would write this. Le Guin would write this the same now as she did then, because it asks the question: is somebody only their race? Right? If he makes everybody gray and certain people disappear because they can't exist without their skin color, is she saying that all they are is their skin color? And I don't think that's what she was trying to do. I think that this was an early novel for her, and it was written quite a few, almost 50, almost 60. No, 50 years ago. So I think she was trying to say that somebody's skin color is more important than people in the 70s would believe. That it defines much more of them, and she was looking forward to concepts like white privilege and what it means to be a person of color in America at that point. So in order to express that, she overshot the analogy to the extent and said that it is so important, the color of your skin, that if you were to go back retroactively and change that you would cease to exist. Very complicated concept, but I really enjoyed reading about her take on that, and especially such an early take from 1971 to see how people were thinking about these concepts that are thought about a lot more now, how somebody would think about them back in the early 70s. It was really interesting to look at. Overall, I highly recommend this book. I'm glad I finished it, because when I first put it down in November, I was having a really hard time with it, and it was because of that kind of character block that I have with Le Guin, because of how far her psychic distance is from her characters. But like I said, when I picked this up, it was a very enjoyable read, and I really had fun with it. And the philosophical concepts alone make it absolutely worth the read. It's a mind bender of a novel that will really make you question how hard it is to answer certain moral dilemmas, and it will make you question how altruistic we can really be when we look at those dilemmas. Well, thank you very much for watching to the end. If you liked this video, please click like, and if you like this kind of content, please click subscribe. We'll be making a lot more of it in the future. Thank you so much for watching.